Hello. This is my fifth. Oh my gosh. Okay, I'm doing it again. I did a live. I said what I had to say. I looked on it. I looked at it. Quality, sound quality, terrible. I could barely hear myself, and it actually cut off when I was in the middle of saying something really good. So I've had quite a bit of practice. I'm going to keep it short and simple to the best of my ability. Um, I was talking about Black Lives Matter, and I was talking about semantics, and I was talking about perceptions of reality and algorithms and AI and our experiences of reality being curated, even more so because most of us are spending most of our time at home and we're not going out and meeting new people and we're socializing online and our biases are being confirmed. And so, anyway, me, Inonge, um, I live in many different worlds. And that's because I have friends I've got just every demographic almost. And I understand where everybody is coming from. Um, and I don't take sides. If I side with anything, it's humanity and God. It's like humanity in our relationship with God. That's it. Um, so I was talking about Black Lives Matter, and I was talking about the value of a Black life. And I had begun by saying that the other morning I woke up and it occurred to me that it used to be that Black people in the United States were the soul of America and produced soul music and rhythm and blues and jazz and gospel music. And there's this and soul food, and there's this soulfulness because Black people had been through so much. And you know how pressure, like when you're under pressure, like diamonds come from pressure. Um, and so there's Black Lives Matter now. It's been around for several years. It's a response to unarmed Black people being killed by police. And if I remember correctly, it sprang up organically from a phrase that was written by a Black woman. She wrote an article, she shared it on social media, and it went viral very quickly. And and it caught on. And then, so there's this Black Lives Matter organization that originally had sprung up very organically, but now there are billions of dollars behind Black Lives Matter now. And it's a brand, it's a big brand. It has tremendous influence all over the world, tremendous influence in politics, in entertainment, in sports, education, you name it. Now, I woke up the other morning and I was thinking about Black people and soul. And what is soul? Like, so we're mind, body, and soul. Um, our minds are our intellect. We have the physical bodies that help us get around in this world. And then soul is this um, eternal, that's our eternal selves. You can't capture a soul, you can only experience soul. So now we have Black Lives Matter, and there are two definitions of matter. One is matter, something that is of importance, something that has worth, um, something that has value in terms of a relationship. And then the other definition of matter is material, um, something that's very physical. And usually, material is something that we make something else out of. So, material, another word for material is commodity. And a commodity could be gold, it could be copper, it could be, cattle is a commodity, water, oil, those are commodities. They're raw materials that we use to create something else. And so Black Lives Matter went from spiritual this spiritual movement, and then it's a very physical thing, and there's a lot of money behind it, and so it kind of is in that category of a commodity. It's been commoditized, whoops, by, you've got all of these corporations, I mean, big companies, I mean, everybody's in on it. Um, so I was talking about the value of a Black life. And very obviously, I can't even say it seems. I mean, this is a fact that when a black when a black life is taken out by another black life, it just doesn't really have very much value. We don't raise our eyebrows. So many black people are being killed by black people every day, week, month, year, etc., etc. Right? When a black person is killed by a white person, then that life has a lot of matter. It really, really matters. I mean, it matters so much that, we give that black life, we bury that body, that matter in, a golden casket, and we suspend the coronavirus um, mandates so that, thousands of people can go to the funeral, and there's a lot of hugging and crying and sobbing and singing, and people are all over each other, but, it's okay because this black life, he's being buried like a king. And why is he being buried like a king? Because he's been touched by a god. He's been killed by a god. I mean, think about it. Like, we're obsessed with white supremacy, and we're obsessed with, dismantling white supremacy. And yet we give value to a black life only when it's been killed by a white person. If that's not white supremacy, I don't know what it is. Meanwhile, there's this little girl, her name is Sequoia Johnson. Oh, please help me if I got it wrong. 8-year-old girl, Atlanta, Georgia. She's in the car with her mom. The city council and the mayor of Atlanta had allowed Black Lives Matter to create this autonomous zone. Mom didn't know about it. There's a barricade. She turns around. There's a gunfight. Her daughter is killed. And nothing is done. There's a press conference, maybe for a couple of days or so. It's on the news. But then there's a surge of funding, of fundraising for Black Lives Matter. I know that there are people who are now raising money for Sequoia's family, and I'll get the link, and I'll put it over there in the comment section. Anyhow, we don't seem to care. So a few years ago, I read an article about how there are these studies done, like social scientists and all of this, talking about something, and neurologists, I guess, psychologists, psychiatrists, all of those people were involved, where they talk about how we have very different reactions when different sorts of people are killed, or die. So if somebody is famous, they're a celebrity, they're a very important person who has a lot of money, or they're a symbol of something that we hold dear, then we mourn. We might not have ever met that person, but we feel like our best friend has died, and we get really, really emotional, and we invest a lot of money and time and energy into remembering this person. But when we see like a tsunami killed like 100,000 people at one time, or when we read about the 100 million people or so, or I don't know how many, 300 million, whatever, in China who had died under communism in China. They died of starvation. We don't care. And we have the same reaction when we think about, for decades and decades now, the dozens of black men, most especially in inner cities, who are killed in the United States, and we feel nothing. What is that phenomenon, you know? So I was thinking about it, and I thought, if we feel numb, we don't feel anything, we feel indifference about black men being killed, then maybe there's a Holocaust going on right now, because the numbers are so high that we feel nothing, and it's a taboo subject to talk about. In the meantime, some of us, like a small percentage of people in, like, say, Black Lives Matter, and, you know, they're the Antifa people who've, like, infiltrated and they're joined in, are willing to, you know, torch downtown, destroy businesses, you know, set on fire federal houses, right, for an idea, and willing to do that because a black man was murdered by a white man. The king was murdered by the god. So what are we doing? Black people, I'm talking to us. What are we doing? Are we saying that a white life is more valuable than a black life? Is that what we're saying? Are we saying that white people have some sort of God status? Why are we not marching and mourning for all of these black people who living in poverty, they can't get out, they're stuck. Now we've, in some cities, defunded the police, they're vulnerable, and we don't care. What message are we sending to black people who really need help? What message are we sending to them? What are we doing? You know, if like anybody, go read Greek mythology. Just start with Greek mythology, right? It's like you'll have this hero and he's touched by a demigod or he's touched by a god. He fights with the god or he's murdered by the god, and then he attains god status because of that proximity to the god, and the god killed him. I mean, we have to think about it. Like, what are we doing? You know, if we really believe that white supremacy is wrong, if we really want to dismantle white supremacy, we've got to get it out of here and here first, right? We have to value our own. We know what we value by what we do, don't we? We value what we invest in, right? So Black Lives Matter organization, I'm watching you. I have many friends who are involved in Black Lives Matter, different, like from the creative side, and I'm going to talk about that too because I've got some friends who are doing creative things and they really need more exposure and they're doing amazing work. But on the national level and on the international level, all of these, multinational corporations that are involved, and you've got churches and all these organizations and educational institutions, put your money where your mouth is. There are between 330 and 350 million people in the United States. It's an absolute miracle that we don't have thousands of unarmed black people killed by police every year, So my heart goes out to everybody who has been murdered and who has a loved one who's been murdered because they're living in an impoverished area, right, that are run over by gangs. I mean, even like, think about the insanity of this. With the coronavirus lockdowns, there were prisoners who were released. Some of them very violent were released. I knew this was going to happen. But, especially people who come from, people like me, we really have got some soul searching to do, because it seems that we have, what is it called? It's like a very twisted, backwards, perverted, upside down, inside out version of touched by an angel, Stockholm syndrome. A white life is as valuable as a black life. A black life that is killed by a white person is as valuable as a black life that is killed by a black person. We need to let go of this materialism. And until black people, all of us, until we let go of this hierarchy, we're not going to let go of this, this white supremacy is like quite happily alive within us, isn't it? This is something to think about. Anyway, this is like my 5th take because I was just having technical problems, but I had to get this out. I have to share, and I think the best thing is for all of us to share our insights and these No one person has the whole truth. It's just not possible. But if more of us individually were willing to say, you know what, I see this thing happening, and I haven't seen anybody else say they've seen it happening, but I see it. Do you see what I see? You know, we can solve many problems and actually help people who need help. Um, but maybe it's just that this whole problem with the Black community, with poverty and fatherlessness and lack of a good education and lack of opportunities, it's just this like vicious cycle. And maybe for us Black people, it's just so painful. It's just such a hard thing to deal with, and we don't know how to solve it, but we want to do something, right? I mean, I have shared and I've seen other people share about these really tragic things that have happened to Black people. And maybe there are a couple of likes here and there, and then amazing things and a couple of likes here and there, but it's like, it doesn't mean anything because they weren't killed by a white person. You know, if that's not white supremacy, I don't know what it is. But for me, all life is equally valuable. You know, um, it doesn't make much sense to discriminate. I mean, even like with royal weddings and deaths and this and celebrities, it's the same syndrome that we have, you know. So somebody got lucky, they had connections, they had talent, they're maybe willing to do things that most people weren't willing to do, not in every case, but in many cases, right? And then we make them into gods. You know, we begin worshiping them, and they're our idols, and they're just symbols, but they're, yeah, I could go on and on. It's a little bit over 17 minutes now, and I'm gonna leave it at that. And tomorrow I'm gonna talk about something else, or maybe talk more about this. And I'm really looking forward to feedback. And tomorrow at noon, I'm gonna open up my Facebook room for anybody who wants to come on, and we can talk about reality. What's real? Is perception real? What's real? Because these algorithms are just, you know, it's like when you go to a fancy restaurant and it's just like everything is just like that, just what we want, just the way we like it. But I don't think that's good for us at all. So, anyway, until next time.